Okay, welcome everybody. Finally into game week. Sitting here after 23, 24 practices of camp to try to get ourselves in the best position that we can to play the first game, and not there yet, but luckily we got practice today, tomorrow, and Thursday and Friday to be able to get in position to play a good William & Mary team. Last week was the first week of school, and it was full of many distractions, and I can't name how many inconveniences that we had to deal with, but luckily we got all that out of the way last week, and this week we can have a real game week, which will get us much more prepared for an actual game than anything. We have not really discussed much about William & Mary up until this point. We will and we did the same thing last year against Marshall, and do the same thing next year against Alabama, but today is when we kind of start prepping for William & Mary, and they bring some different challenges. They play in a great conference that is the best FCS conference out there, in my opinion. They have, shooting the last 10 years, they've beat numerous 1A opponents. They've won national championships. William & Mary is one of those teams that have beaten 1A teams, and much like we dealt with last year with James Madison, you got to be on guard when you're playing a team like that. They're very well coached. Jimmy Laycock's been there for 34 years. I mean, how do you maintain your job for 34 years if you don't know what you're doing? So it is very well coached. His kids will play very, very hard. They're a lot better than how they ended last year. They had some quarterback issues last year with the injuries. They played 3 different guys. Hopefully we're not in that situation this year. But defensively they're very sound. Offensively, they're going to try to control the clock. They're going to try to get out there and run the ball and try to control it at that well. So, much like we've gone into the last 2 years, we got to figure out what we do well. We got to figure out what our team's all about. So we'll challenge our guys to treat this week the same as we treat it next week, to learn how to prep for a week. We should enjoy the process of a game week. You only get about 12 of them, so you should enjoy the process, which we will enjoy the process this week, and then get out there and look forward to a fun afternoon in Morgantown. So with that said, I'll take some questions.
Any further word on your quarterback situation?
No, it's the same as it's been. I mean, we said that we're going to rep 2 of them this week. Paul and Clint will get 50% of the reps. We will still keep Ford ready to go. I feel good about being able to have 3 quarterbacks that we feel like can get out there and play ball. If it gets to that, then we'll deal with it. Who's going to start? I don't know. Either Paul or Clint will start, and the other one will play, and potentially all 3 of them will play. So at this point, they've done nothing to warrant not being quarterback here. So I think it's probably going to take some game reps and put those guys in situations where they got to respond in order to really see what they're all about.
William & Mary is about 10 minutes from knocking off Maryland in the opener last year. It's safe to say they can't be overlooked here?
Yeah, it's just what I just said. I mean, them and everybody else in that conference. I mean, they got, James Madison's in their conference. Villanova's won a national championship. Delaware's won a national championship. They've all beat 1A opponents. Last year it was, they almost beat Maryland. A couple years ago they beat Virginia. James Madison's beat Virginia Tech. Villanova's beat Temple. I mean, it goes on and on. I mean, do we want to be the next on that list? I don't think so. So I think we're going to be able to take these guys pretty serious. We should be excited to play. It doesn't matter who we play. We're tired of practicing against each other. We're tired of going live. We're tired of doing offense, defense, and against each other. It's time to focus on somebody else, regardless who that opponent is. We should be excited to play.
Have you figured out what you guys do well yet? You mentioned that earlier. You're still trying to figure that out. Do you have an idea of what you guys are doing well right now?
No clue. I wouldn't tell you if I knew anyway, Ed. You know that. I mean, we're not going to reinvent the wheel here. I mean, everybody knows what we do offensively and defensively, and special teams is a little bit more of a mystery. You can turn the tape on from last year and figure out what we do defensively. Is Keith going to have some different wrinkles to it? Yes. Are we going to develop some different wrinkles offensively based on what our personnel is? I would assume that we will. Special teams, it's not the same coordinators as it was last year, so are we going to do some different things special teams? I would say there's probably a pretty good chance of that. But, you see what it is. You see what the product is out there. Where you're going to be able to notice distinct differences being a fan in the stands. I doubt that very much.
Considering the number of true freshman transfers you have in the 2 deep last week, is it probably a pretty big focus on Saturday to get them involved, get some real-time snaps?
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good idea. Not as many freshmen are on there as there was last year. If you remember, what was it, 8 or 10 freshmen that we played last year defensively? I mean, everybody wants to know why we were bad defensively last year. That's probably one pretty good sign, too. We were in the Big 12, which had, 5 of the top 8 offenses in the country. That makes things challenging. We didn't lose a ton of personnel defensively to warrant concern. We did offensively, so we got a lot of inexperienced guys, whether they're guys that were in the program or whether they were guys that are not in the program. There's not a ton of guys offensively that have taken a lot of college snaps. So yes, that's a concern. It can be a concern to some. It can be exciting to others. I kind of tend to go on the exciting part. Can't wait to see those guys get out there and see what they got. See which guys are going to respond to a game atmosphere, to 65,000 people in the stands, to national TV. Some guys will raise their game, to elevate their game. So some guys will probably get wide-eyed and not do what we want them to do. We have to identify that, and there's only one way that you can identify that. Defensively, I'm excited to see our guys, see how they've developed, which I've seen them up close and personal here for the last 3.5 weeks, and I do think that they've developed. Obviously, you got to show it on Saturday.
Coach, with Ivan back after his leave last season, do you see a difference in him personally off the field?
Yeah, I've seen some differences in him. I think it matters a lot more to him now. Whatever those issues were that he was dealing with last year, I don't see him dealing with those this year. So is he going to be a difference maker? We'll see on Saturday.
Last time we saw anything, we saw Kevin White in a green jersey. Where's he stand?
Injury report. All right. Kevin White is questionable. He's got a foot problem. Mario Alford is questionable. He's got a foot problem. Andrew Bowie is redshirting. Let's see here. Shelton Gibson is redshirting. Devontae Henry is redshirting. Shaq Petaway has surgery Friday. Nan is recovering well. What other injuries do we got? I think that's it. Adam Pankey is progressing ahead of schedule. Probably not going to play this week, but he's progressing pretty good.
Is there a reason for Andrew Bowie other than
he's just going to develop mentally and physically, and we're going to leave it at that. So he's not going to play this year. He's going to redshirt, and I fully expect him ready to roll in the spring.
And the same thing with Shelton. I know he was injured earlier, but is that similar both for him?
Yeah, set him back a little bit. So same thing with him. I mean, at redshirt, all these. I mean, I didn't want to play 12, 15 freshmen last year. I think our depth is better than what it was last year. So it's going to enable us to be able to redshirt some guys. Ike McDonald's another guy. Came in late, isn't ready to play. Darian Howard's here now. Doesn't look like he's ready to play, but we have not been able to have one day with him in pads yet. So I don't know where he's at. Malik Greaves is going to redshirt. All these guys, redshirts could get pulled based on depth, based on injuries, based on a lot of other stuff, but Eli Wellman's going to redshirt. Jackie Marcellus is going to redshirt. Stone Underwood, Lazard, Tizino, Lingafelter, all those guys are going to redshirt, which means that the program's in pretty good shape depth-wise. If you can get all those guys to develop for a whole year and not have to burn their year, then you're in pretty good shape. And so that's where we're at right now. Mentioned Darryl Worley, Jeremy Tyler, Marvin Gross, DeKeel Shorts, Wendell Smallwood. Those guys are technically true freshmen that we're anxious to get them out there to play.
Is that what you've been in that mix too? Or?
He's right now playing on redshirting.
And how do you handle mentally a kid that led you in rushing the year before and to tell him, doesn't look like you're going to play? I mean, how do you?
Well, I mean, he had some decisions. I mean, some of these are decisions that he makes as well. I mean, did we force him to? No. And again, I'm looking forward to talking about Charles Sims, Dustin Garrison, Dreama Smith, and Wendell Smallwood. But with that said, he just felt like it was in the best interest of him and the best interest in the future of our program to save his year.
Danny, you mentioned those running backs. Do you have an idea in your head of touches? Like, I think, get Charles this many, Dreamius this many.
Hot hand, I mean, whoever kind of gets the hot hand. I don't know how it's going to go. I mean, when we hand the ball off, if it looks good and we're getting yards, we'll probably do it again. Same thing in the pass game. If we're protecting fine, we're throwing it, we're completing balls, we'll do that more as well. They're all going to play. They're all going to play. Cody Clay is going to play in the backfield and H-back and tight end. Garrett Hope's going to play tight end, H-back. We have bodies that can give us snaps back there, and I feel very good about it. I have not been able to sit here for the last 2 years and say I felt good about it because we've always had about 2 or 3, and now I feel like we got some depth that I'm excited about.
Speaking of not feeling good at times, I noticed that Ivan McCartney is at the top of your depth chart. Can you talk about what he's done well?
Yeah, he's had a good camp. He's been able to maintain relative health, which has always been one of his issues in the past. As he had some sore limbs over the last 3.5 weeks, yes. Did it prevent him from practicing? No. And that's different than the way it was the first 2 years that I was here. So, he's doing a good job. KJ Myers has done a phenomenal job. You got guys that haven't been through this before, like Mario, Kevin, Ronald Carswell. They just haven't been through this before. Devontae Mathis, Vernon Davis, they haven't been through this before. DeKeel Shorts has really impressed me. He's just a true freshman, but he's really impressed me. So he's going to be one of the first ones that gets trotted out there. How much they play is going to depend on what I see when they're out there. And again, what are our personnel groupings going to be? I mean, that's kind of one of its game planning, and 2 of it's how they respond once they're out there. So I think there's a lot of questions that are going to be answered on Saturday, and I'm not going to be able to give you those answers until Saturday.
With Paul, during training camp, you said he was making the best and worst decisions. Have you seen the better decisions, rather?
Yeah, clearly. Clearly, I mean, the guy that we're going to eventually give the most reps to is going to be the guy that takes care of the ball, which is what I meant by bad decisions, So, and that's simple quarterback center exchanges or appropriate handoffs or, interceptions and all that. So they got to take care of the ball. They got to make good decisions, and they got to minimize the negative things that happen, which are negative plays and turnovers.
How much does that concern you that you're going to be learning that in a game situation now, and does that make you want to keep them on a shorter leash when you know you've got another guy right there?
Depends on my mood, I guess. Depends on how the game's going. I mean, we don't live in a perfect world. Would I rather have a 3-year starter returning at quarterback? Yeah, but what we're dealing with right now is the same as about what 30 to 40 to 50 other schools are dealing with right now. It's just college football and graduation, and that opens the door for the next star to be born as well. I've talked about that a lot too. I mean, you lose a couple of the guys that we lost, and they were tremendous players here, but that opens the door for for somebody else to get those snaps and have the ability to go make those plays as well. So I'm not going to sit here and worry or lose sleep or gripe and moan about not having those guys. I mean, I'm excited about the guys we got, and I look forward to getting them out there to make plays. Somebody will rise up.
Dana, the impossible question to answer, I suppose, but you're playing an FCS.
Why are you going to ask?
I know.
It's impossible for me to answer this.
You're playing an FCS school, and the impossible part is you can't say that you're going to beat these guys. But if you get into a situation where you don't need to do a lot of things, are you of the school that says you like to save things for Oklahoma the following week, or put things on film so that they have to worry about them?
I'm for doing whatever we got to do to move the ball forward, or doing whatever we got to do to stop the opposing team from moving the ball forward. If that means put your best foot forward, then I'd highly recommend to put your best foot forward. And we will game plan William and Mary just like we game plan Oklahoma the next week. Whatever we feel like we're good at, we're going to go do. So they're going to watch tape on us, we're going to watch tape on them, and we're all going to have to assume that that's just what we do.
I'm assuming Ford could tell how the depth chart was going to play out in the latter days, but with quarterbacks and the way these kids move, because you can't rotate them in and out, how did he handle being
Who's
third?
that? Ford? Oh, he's fine. Ford's got 4 years of eligibility, right? I mean, if you look at a lot of the guys in the past that have been successful, Brandon Whedon didn't even have a freshman year. Graham Harrell sat his whole freshman year, his redshirt freshman year. Gino got thrusted in, game 8, game 9 or something of his freshman year. Clint Chelf, third-team quarterback at Oklahoma State last year, ended up starting, 7, 8 games. I mean, you better keep your head up, you better study hard, you better work hard, because you never know when your number is going to get called, and when it does, you better get in there and make the most of it. That's his mentality right now, and that's what I expect it to be until his number is called. It could be this year, it could be next year, it could be the next year. I don't know.
You can put your 5 guys in the field, right? Skill guys there. Your satisfaction with inside receiver, does that mean maybe more running backs, or has that gotten better where you might actually see both inside receivers?
Yeah, we will. We will. Jordan Thompson's healthy and will play. Mario's gonna get better and play. Devontae Mathis has impressed me in the last week and a half, so he will play. So we have 4 guys that can go in at inside receiver and play. With that said, that's just the position. The deeper we are at running back, the more we like using 2 backs or 3 backs, or 2 backs and 2 tight ends, or 2 backs and 1 tight end, or 1 back and H-back and a tight end. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we can put in the game that's going to take snaps away from the inside receivers. So it takes away from the importance of having a 2 deep at the inside receiver spot. It's more important to have 2 deep outside, which we don't have.
If winning is 1, staying healthy is 1B, I guess, what are other things, first game, all things equal, you'd like to accomplish, or at least answer in your own mind?
Just to see what the kids' mentality's like. And I'm talking about individually more than anything. Which guys get wide-eyed, which guys. Nothing puts guys in position more than a game does to figure out what their mental toughness is, their physical toughness, being able to be disciplined. Guys that haven't jumped off sides all camp may end up being flinchy and jump off sides because it's a game. A game is, we try to put them in as many situations as we possibly can, which I think we did a good job of as a staff starting back in January, having a challenging off season. A lot of practice in spring, a lot of practice in camp. Try to put them in as many situations as you possibly can. You can't simulate a game. I don't care who you're playing. You can't. So with this many new guys, this many guys that haven't taken snaps before, you got to kind of look at them to see what their state of mind is going to be, and if they remain calm, if they get wide-eyed, if they go into a shell. There's a whole lot of guys that we're going to try to evaluate that we haven't been able to do that yet. That's not number 1 on the list, but that's up there.
along those lines, there's an idea that you don't know what you have at quarterback until you play in a game, but with what you just said there, you're not going to put a guy there unless you know what he can do. How much, I guess the other part of the conversation we've missed, how much do you know about a quarterback by the time that you do run out there Saturday?
Well, and that's the one thing that's probably the only reason why we reduced Ford's reps is because he hasn't taken a snap in college. And Clint has played in 3 high-profile games. Paul's been put in there on several different occasions and at least took snaps in college, right? So, I mean, he's been there before, none of which is going to be the same as running out there as the starting quarterback, which Clint has done on a couple of different occasions. But, because those guys have taken the snaps, that's probably was the reason why we reduce it to them 2. And with that said, I mean, we're gonna monitor what Ford's state of mind is in the warm-ups, and hopefully we get a chance to play all 3 of them.